I made a way too long video over on my other channel about this. It's an absolutely amazing topic. I'm going to get into a number of things I've discovered. Something about 70 generations shall pass. And this is in Enoch. It's talking about the Watchers being bound for 70 generations. And I hadn't really seen anybody talk about this in great detail, and I think I figured out exactly what it means. This is Tony. I hope you're all doing well. And I covered it for 40 minutes over on my other channel. I wasn't just talking about that, though. I talked about pretty much everything. All of what I've seen in history and how it's been, of course, changed over time. And why has it been? Why has it been? It says in Daniel that he'll change times and seasons. Talking about the devil, right? And there's a reason why he did that. Because he has a short time. Again, what I'm saying is that we're in a different time frame than we think we're in. We're in a time frame way at the end, past the time of the abyss. The 1,000 years, millennial, of course, kingdom. I've talked about this before. But what's amazing is I found a number of new things I'm going to cover in this video that I didn't see in previous times when I did videos on this. And, the 70 generations, I've never done a video on that. And all the other things I'm going to talk about after that are new understandings, things I hadn't realized or knew at the time. So let's get into this. The 70 generations thing, it's really amazing because it says that the Watchers will be bound for 70 generations. And I'm like, oh, that's curious. When did that end, right? So there's some person here asking on Quora a question about this. And the way he framed it wasn't exactly right, but it gets to the point. He's trying to ask about these 70 generations, this passage. What does it mean that they're imprisoned for this long, and what happens after that, right? And you got two different answers that are given, and one of them I believe is correct, okay? So this guy here says, well, you just type 70 generations times 70 years, you get 4,900 years. Of course, this is just his assumption, and then it comes to the year 1890, and then they talk about, and their argument is from there, look, you got the Industrial Revolution, blah, blah, blah. So they're actually thinking that they got released in 1890. But it actually doesn't even say that in the text, and I'm going to show you what it really says. And it actually isn't correct about the 70 generations either, because there's another guy down here that talks about there being 77 generations from Adam to Jesus, okay? And that is true. And actually, once you understand where Enoch, he was number 7. 77 minus 7 is 70. So here you got 77 generations from Adam to the King of Kings, right? Then if you go over here to how many generations from Adam to Enoch, Enoch is number 7. So 77 minus 7 is 70, right? So now if you go to the passage itself in Enoch, let me see if I can find that because I got a million windows open. Just give me a second here. I think it's this one. Yeah, here it is. So I'm going to show you the passage. And like I said, you have to bear with me here. I have so many windows open, it actually has not enough tabs to show them all. So that's how many windows I got open. All right. Here we have Enoch, of course, 4. It says here, go bind Samlaz. I don't know if you wrote that incorrectly. I think it's Simjazi or whatever. And his associates who have united themselves, of course, with women, etc., etc. And then it says here, bind them fast for 70 generations in the valleys of the earth, till the day of their, of course, judgment. Then it goes on to say, in those days, they shall be led off to the abyss of fire, right? What is this abyss? So I started doing a lot of research last night, spent hours trying to figure this out. I'm like, I got to figure this out exactly. I understand I got something here. I need to figure out exactly what this is saying. So it doesn't say they're released. It says they're led off to another abyss. So they're led from the valleys of the earth to the abyss. And another translation writes it from under the rocks of the earth to the abyss. Okay, and I was like, oh, under the rocks of the earth, what is that? So I started looking around and I found another passage talking about Raphael putting Azazel in a hole in the desert in Judeo and covering them with jagged rocks. I'm like, oh, rocks of the earth, jagged rocks, sounds very similar. Probably the same thing, right? So then I started looking around and I saw some other things, and it has to do with the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. They're found in the Great Pyramid. They're written in Phoenician or Paleo-Hebrew, probably the first original written language, probably before the Tower of ancient Babel, right? And So that was the original language, I'm pretty sure. And that's how the most ancient Testament, Old, was written, was in Paleo-Hebrew as well. So it was written on an emerald tablet and put in the Great Pyramid. And it says it was written by Hermes Trismegistus about, and Hermes is the same term as Thoth in another language. It means the god of knowledge. So Hermes Trismegistus is supposedly the son of this god, Hermes or Thoth, which is the god of knowledge, right? And it talks about in it how he was put in a sarcophagus in a chamber underneath the Great Pyramid, and then there were rocks over it or something like that. And then after that was built over it, the Great Pyramid itself. So, and I'm just explaining out, and I'm not showing you everything because I show it all in great detail over on my other channel, God Rules, if you want to go check that out. I'm not going to show it all here because I don't want to spend another 40 minutes explaining out everything in detail. But, okay, so essentially the idea is that, and I guess I'll show you the part where it says this. Let's see. Yeah, here it is. Okay. So this is in the Emerald Tablets. And the Emerald, okay, so it says here, the Emerald Tablet opens with, I, Thoth, the Atlantean, Master of Mysteries, Keeper of Records. Let me see if I can get it closer. The Emerald Tablet says, I, Thoth, the Atlantean, Master of Mysteries, Keeper of Records, Mighty King, Magician, living from generation to generation, being about to pass into the halls of Amenti. Into the halls of Amenti. What is the halls of Amenti, folks? It's Hades, I believe. Set down for guidance those that are to come after. These records of mighty wisdom of great Atlantis. As the Emerald Tablet continues, it becomes more clear as to why the Great Pyramid holds such significance. Now, for a time, I go from among them into the dark halls of Amenti, deep in the halls of the earth, before the Lord of Powers. Who's the Lord of Powers? Maybe the Lord of Lords? Sounds about right. Face to face once again with the Dweller. Now, there is an angel set over Hades, or the bottomless, of course, pit. I think his name, what was his name again? I can't remember. It's in Revelation, I believe. It might be who it's referring to there. I'm not sure. Raised high over the entrance, a doorway, a gateway leading down into Amenti. Few there would be with courage to dare it. Few pass the portal to dark Amenti. Well, obviously this ain't a good place, folks. Dark Amenti. Sounds like Hades or something, or maybe even the pit itself. Raised over the passage, a mighty pyramid, using the power that overcomes earth force. Deep in yet deeper place, a force house or chamber. From it carved a circular passage, reaching almost to the great summit. Lie in the sarcophagus of stone in my chamber, then reveal I to him the great mysteries. Soon shall he follow to where I shall meet him. Even in the darkness of earth shall I meet him. I, Thoth, Lord of Wisdom, meet him and hold him and dwell with him always. Okay, so you can see what it's saying there, right? Now, it says there he created a pyramid over this hole. Now, actually, now I think I know what the Dweller is. Is it Azazel? I think it is Azazel. I think that because he says he's making this, he's digging this hole down to it and is communing with him, it sounds like, right? So I think it's him saying that okay, so let me explain what I think is going on here. So, okay, we have Raphael putting Azazel in a hole in the desert in Dudael, and then he put rough and jagged rocks over it. Then we have this other being, which sounds like he's from the Divine Council, named Thoth. He comes and digs a hole down where it was, digs his hole deep down into there to where Azazel was, and makes some sort of chamber, maybe to where he could commune with him somehow, but he can't maybe reach completely to where he is, because it says you dare not to go there, maybe because there's, again, an angel guarding it. You see what I'm getting at? So if he goes down in there, then he'll be maybe captured in there as well. I don't know. So something like that, it sounds like. And then after that, he makes a great pyramid over this hole, right? Now, it says, I think in one of the Solomon writings, that Solomon had And I'm not sure if this text is accurate or not, so I'm not quite sure. I've heard different views on how the Great Pyramid was built. We have Thoth saying he built it. We have Solomon saying that he made watchers or angels or fallen angels or whatever build it, or demons or whatever, something like that. And so maybe it's a combination of those. I'm not quite sure how it worked, but it sounds like it was probably watchers or something that built the pyramid, and maybe they were forced to make it. I'm not sure. Maybe Thoth was forced to make it. I'm not sure either. It's hard to tell, but at any rate, you get the idea. So this I believe is the valleys of the earth that it's talking about in Enoch, where it says, let's see if I can pull that up because I have so many windows open. Yeah, here we go. Nope, that's not it. Here it is. I don't even think I showed it to you guys. Okay, so it says here, bind them fast for 70 generations in the valleys of the earth till the day of judgment. Again, as I mentioned, this 70 generations is from the time of Enoch to the King of Kings, the Son himself being born, right? And so what I think it means is that when he was on the, of course, cross, that is when he conquered death and went down to the valleys of the earth, this area that Thoth is referring to, and he moved these beings. And let me show you that in Colossians, where it says, and having spoiled principalities and powers, he made a show of them openly, triumphing over them in it. This, I believe, is the point where he goes down to this area in Egypt, perhaps underneath the Great Pyramid. This is what I'm thinking. And the King of Kings moves them from this chamber underneath the Great Pyramid down deeper into Hades, because I believe what you're seeing here is this hole that Raphael made in the desert goes all the way down into Hades itself. And Tartarus is the lowest level of Hades, is the bottomless, of course, pit is at the bottom of Hades. So Hades has many chambers according to various texts. And like I said, I'm not going to show you all of it here because it'll take me too long. So Hades has all these chambers, and the bottommost chamber is called Tartarus. And actually, I think I can show you a little bit of this. Where is that at? Okay, which one is it? This is the Judeo one. No, that's not it. Maybe it's this. No, this is interesting. I'm going to show you this as well. Actually, there's historical references to a place called the bottomless pit underneath the Great Pyramid itself. In Iglus archives, it's called the bottomless pit underneath the Great Pyramid. No joke. It literally is called this. So I think there's even other ancient texts that says there's a abyss underneath the pyramid itself. And we have the Emerald Tablets of Thoth talking about there's some sort of other dimension or something down there, caverns down there, right? So you have all these ancient texts saying these things are underneath the Great Pyramid. That's not what I was going to show you, but that's another thing. Like I said, I'm jumping around saying all these things based on a ton of things I looked into here, and it just would take me too long to show you everything on the screen that I looked into. But yeah, here we go. This guy's talking about the abyss. Tartarus is translated bottomless, of course, pit in the KJV on Revelation 9, 2, 11, 17, and 20. Translated the deep in Luke. And this was very curious. And this is what I was trying to mention in my other videos. I think Enoch was employing a very similar technique we see in Psalms where they'll say the same thing twice. And this made me wonder if the King of Kings essentially moved him from somewhere down in Hades, deep down in Hades already, maybe in the abyss, to another area in the abyss or something like that. Maybe even deeper, something to that effect. Or maybe it was essentially the same area, kind of. You see what I'm getting at? Something to that effect. And I'll show you why I'm saying that in a second. See, here it says here, translated the deep in Luke, right? And it says deep crevice of the earth. So the term abyss, Tartarus, bottomless pit, and deep crevice in the earth all mean the exact same thing. But if you look at this original text, it says valleys of the earth. Isn't that the same as deep crevice of the earth? Valleys of the earth, deep crevice of the earth. That sounds like it's talking about the abyss as well. But then it says he's led off to the abyss of fire. That's also referring to the abyss. So maybe it's just a different section of the abyss. So the King of Kings moves him from one section of the abyss to maybe a more permanent section of the abyss or something to that effect. So this is what I believe is going on in the good book. It's talking about right here, him moving him from one area to another in Hades and the lowest part of Hades. And it talks about that also in 1 Peter, something about them being in Tartarus, right? So bound in Tartarus. So this all seems to correlate. The Emerald Tablets of Thoth, the good book itself, Enoch, all these books seem to be correlating on this. And it sounds like it's pointing to the Great Pyramid as being the capstone over this. And of course, Isaiah talks about the Great Pyramid. It says it's the Pillar of Enoch. It's in the midst of Egypt and on the border of Egypt. And that is the case. That's exactly where it's at. And Dudael is said to be in the upper part of Egypt, which is where we see the Great Pyramid as well. So all this stuff seems to correlate pretty well. And I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing all of this stuff here. Yeah, okay. So I already covered that. So you get kind of the idea what I'm trying to get. So this is what I was kind of establishing more in detail, kind of things I've covered in the past there, and also talking about the King of Kings and how he's involved in some of what's going on with this. But what's amazing is, so let me kind of explain out the whole thing right real quick here. In a minute, I'm going to explain the whole thing out, and it's just going to sound like, whoa, like that. And then I'll try to back it up with some stuff. But before I do so, got to mention Food Supply, 25-year shelf life. Link is in the description. They got a new deal going on, $7.97 for 3 months worth of food, plus also a $300 water filtration system included. They went back to that deal. Also, they have a much cheaper deal for $100 for a little over $100 for 2 weeks worth of food. If you just need something and don't have, like, you know, I guess big money to buy some of the really big packages, they have other packages you can buy as well. Food Supply, link below. Link is in the description. Also, this book here, The Lost Ways, How Your Great-Great-Grandfather Lived Without Electricity, How to Build a Cellar, Do Things Around the House Like They Did in the Old Days. Hundreds of pages illustrated. Link is in the description for that as well. And of course, we have shirts and things like that below, link below as well at our store. And gold and silver's link below. Also my website, GR Videos. We're putting up a lot of videos over there. We got a forums going now. And you can watch hundreds of videos, free account, go join the forums, whatever you want. All for free. Link is in the description. Also, the membership section, $4.95 a month. First month is free as well. Again, link is in the description. Let's get back to the video. So I'm going to explain out kind of what I think has happened in history, and it's going to sound way different than things you've heard before. And there's a reason why. Because it says in Daniel that he'll think to change times and seasons. The devil purposely changed, of course, our history. And I can show you evidence of this. It's very in your face. If you understand, if you look up when was creation, this is just an example, you'll get this number 4004 BC. But if you look it up just right, you'll get two different numbers. They'll say, oh, it's either 4004 BC or 5500 BC. So if you type in 5500, it will tell you about the other version. So this is the one the Septuagint says. This is the one the Dead Sea Scrolls says. This is the one that Flavius Josephus, the historian, says. The only one that says 4000 is the Hebrew Masoretic, which, of course, for some reason, everyone just accepts that one, when actually this is probably the more accurate one. Clement of Alexandria says 5592, and actually I think it's probably 5530. Yeah, this is interesting. They mentioned Theophilus of Antioch, because I'll show you that in a second. He says 5530. Whether I'm guessing Clement is probably wrong, and I'll tell you why Clement is wrong. Because there's a number of texts that says the sun would come at 5500. And I've shown that before on video. I think I have it here. Is this it? No, this is not it. I got like a million windows, like I said, open. Which one is it? It's one of you. Here it is. Okay, so I've shown this many times before. First Adam and Eve, second Adam and Eve, Book of Adam. Numerous texts all say that it'll come at exactly 5.5 days or 5,500 year. The beloved, of course, son will come. It says he'll even be in the River Jordan, folks. I mean, it literally tells you everything. And even, this is where John got his wording right here. I will send my word. After an end of great 5 days and a half. So these texts were all, of course, hidden right? Again, the devil has a short time. So let me explain. The devil has a short time. We're in that short time. We're in the time after he's been in the bottomless pit for 1,000 years. He's out. He's been out for hundreds of years already. That's why you saw such a huge change in the world, technologically, etc., etc. You've noticed massive changes from about the 1500s until now. He got out around the 1500s. And of course, I've done videos covering all this stuff in the past. But the fact is, let me just explain out what I think happened. I'm just going to explain it, and then I'll try to back up some of it. So first you had the Watchers. They came down, they did their thing, and it didn't work out too well for them. They came down on Mount Hermon. They had wives, etc., etc. Then the flood came, and I've done videos detailing how the flood worked. I even detailed how we have now today Halley's Comet was likely from the inside of the Earth. I've explained that out on video as well, and it's absolutely amazing. It's a certain theory on how scientifically our Earth is the way it is currently, and it has to do with the flood, and it has to do with the Great Fourth breaking up through the Mid-Atlantic Ridge and all these different ridges around the world. That's where the water came out from underneath the plates itself. There's still water down there, but a lot of water was shot up so fast that some of it went up into space. And I've covered that before. I'm not going to get into that right now. But so you had the Watchers. They came down. They did their thing. They got it. It didn't work out too well. The whole Earth was in chaos. Then, of course, the flood came to sort of bring things back to where they should be. And after the flood, and it was around that time that they were probably put into this hole in the ground. Raphael, and it says that they were able to watch their own offspring essentially take each other out before they were put into this hole as part of their, discipline, I guess you would say. So then they were put in this hole. Maybe it was after the flood. I don't know if it was before or after, whatever it was. So they're put in this hole. It was covered, right? And then after that, we have Thoth coming in there. Maybe it probably was before, based on how the Emerald Tablets talk. So he went in there and dug in a hole, made a chamber, and then built the pyramid over it. Yeah, that makes sense, because there's actually watermarks in the pyramid. That's right. So this happened before the flood. So he dug down the hole, then he made the pyramid over it, according to the Emerald Tablets, whether he is directed or not. Then there's flood lines in the pyramid itself. So there actually was water flooded into the pyramid. There's lines. I've seen archaeological evidence of that. So then that's when that happened. Then after that, then we fast forward to about to the birth of the King of Kings. Then, of course, the cross, and that's when he joyfully triumphed over him. He moved him from this, whether it's one area of the abyss to a more permanent area of the abyss or whatever it was. So like I said, underneath the Great Pyramid is Hades. It goes down to the bottomless pit is the lowest area. That's where they're at in Tartarus. He moved them from one area in there to another area in there, and then this is their permanent area. So now they're in this bottomless pit, Tartarus, whatever you call it. And from there, 70 years later, we have a sight in the clouds, according to three major historians, Flavius Josephus, I think Tacitus, and another one, all say there was a sighting of chariots in the clouds, and then Jerusalem, of course, fell after that, and there's something seen in the temple as well, saying, let's remove out of here. So that might have been what the King of Kings said, that I will come back for you. And he was talking to his own followers. He wasn't talking to you and I 2,000 years later. He was talking to his own followers. So he came back at AD 70, and it says, what is it to you if John's still alive when I come back, right? There's a passage that says that as well. Well, AD 70, he probably was still alive. So that's when he came back and got him, was 70 AD, right? It's kind of interesting. So there's the 70 AD historical reference. I could show you that, but like I said, I'm trying to explain this out really quickly. I'm not trying to show you everything. I'm just explaining it out. And I know some of you will be like, I don't believe you. But if you go look it up, Flavius Josephus, I can even show you that real quick. Let me just show you it real fast, even though I got millions of windows already open. Chariots of fire, clouds, Flavius Josephus. You can look this up yourself. But here we go. I spelled his name wrong, of course. How do you spell his name? I spelled it with the I wrong. There it is. Okay. Yeah, here we go. There's even people talking about it. Does the historical account of chariots in the clouds actually describe... Oh, they say it's that. They say an unidentified object. Okay, that's funny. No, that's not what it was, actually. It's talking about armies in the sky. So this is Josephus. Bizarre history, right? So that nobody knows about this. It's just hilarious. He was seen in the clouds back in AD 66 or AD 70. Okay? That's just an example. And you can read it. He cites the text here. I've read it before on video. You can go look it up yourself. Like I said, there's tons of these things I'm trying to explain. So then there's that. That happens. Then he comes back. And like I said, he was born at 5,500. I showed that. I think I already showed that on video here. Yeah, 5,500. He was born at 5,500. All these texts say there's 7,000 years. So you got the 6,000 years and you got the 1,000 year millennial kingdom. So if he was born at 5,500, 500 years after that would be 500 AD, which would be the fall of Roman Empire. Fall of Roman Empire. And then I go in and I can actually show you how, where is that at? Yeah, here it is. Fall of Roman Empire actually matches up perfectly with Revelation. 3 Germanic kingdoms give the little horn power. The little horn is the Pope of the Vatican. There was a Pope named Sixtus III, which is Pope 66 and another 6. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. It all matches up perfectly. So the millennial kingdom started at 450 AD, went to 1450 AD. We call it the medieval times. They say it's dark history. Just ignore it. That's where we have our greatest architecture, greatest buildings. Then you go in and you can see, and this is where I get into the 1800s, where they did these World Fairs, and they actually removed all these buildings. These buildings that were built during the millennial, of course, kingdom. In America, all across America, there was buildings like you see in ancient Rome, or in current Rome. You have these absolutely ornate, beautiful buildings, very large, don't make sense. Where do they come from, right? We can't build anything like that today. We build Walmarts. We build nothing. We don't build anything remotely like this. And of course, see, what's interesting is if you look at these World Fairs, you got Missouri, you got California, San Francisco, you got Chicago. All these cities had these absolutely stunning buildings. And then, of course, you have this man named John Root come along saying, oh, I'm going to build these World Fairs. And then he built a couple extra buildings alongside these beautiful buildings. And then he claims that he built all of them when he didn't. And it's obvious because if you look at various pictures, you can see like vines growing on them and stuff before he even started building. It's hilarious. So, and I've shown a lot of these pictures before. You can go through here. I mean, Chicago World Fair, here's one of the biggest buildings ever built. We can't build it today even. 300,000, this is only half the building right here. 300,000 people can sit in this building. This is only half the building here you're looking at. And we don't even have a building that can house 300,000 today. And they supposedly built this with horse and buggy. Give me a break. Okay, they have the Crystal Palace in England. You can't even build it today. They built it before automatic glass making, before they had assembly for automatic creation of glass, like, an assembly line. They didn't even have one back then. They had this building all out of glass, about like not as big as that one, but pretty huge, like almost like similar size building, all pure glass. They couldn't even maintain it. They couldn't even build it again. And supposedly we're in the greater technology now. This is a building probably from the Millennial Kingdom. Okay? And they can't build it now. And so there's all these buildings, and they kept some of them. They kept some of these. Here's a drawing of an area in Colombia. And they claim that they built these. But you can see here, this is before, there's vines all over it. It looks ancient. There's vines all over it, and it looks ancient in the painting. And they're claiming they built it in like 2 years. And these are like giant. So like, to give you an idea, let me show you another picture. Here's one that's still standing. One of the ones they decided to keep around. You can see how big the people are. They're like the size of my little magnifying glass on my mouse. That's how big they are. And they claim they built this in 2 years. And this is one of the buildings they kept while they got rid of most of them, right? And they claimed a lot of them they built out of plaster and wood. I mean, look how big this is. You think they could build this with horse and buggy in 2 years? Look how big it is. How did they build it? And one of the ones that he actually took down was this one right here, which they claim was just out of plaster. Yeah, right. Look how big it is. Here's the people. The people are like little ants here. They built this out of wood and plaster, really? And you can they have different floors and you can go on all the different floors. And they built it in 2 years. I don't believe it. So this is what I'm talking about. So it says that the devil's let out for a short time. So he was in the bottomless, of course, pit from 450 AD to 1450 AD. He got out, established the Vatican Library, went back where he came from. He was in the Vatican in Rome when he fell. The King of Kings came around 450 AD and then established the kingdom. And then he just went back right back to where he was. And Joan of Arc was the first person, I think, was the first sign of him being back, because she wore, of course, what a man wears, and she was like a man, and she heard voices. And it's interesting. And actually, her compadre, I've talked about him, Gilius, just the first. I don't want to get into it, but it's really obvious something happened then. And at any rate, that's also when we started having the scientific revolution. We had the Age of Enlightenment, and all this stuff started happening right after Lucifer gets out. Okay, so he was in there for 1,000 years during this time. And so in the same area that these watchers were. So these watchers are in this permanent area in Tartarus underneath Hades, underneath the Great Pyramid. This is where Lucifer was bound for 1,000 years as well. And then he was let out, and he started, changing times and seasons. So you don't understand what happened in the past. And this is what I believe all these buildings are. I mean, look at this. This is absolutely amazing. I was looking at this, and I can't even show it all on screen. Let me see if I can get it on the screen better. You can see here how it looks. This is a colorized photo of, what is this, San Francisco? I think this might be San Francisco. Can't remember offhand because I got so many windows open. But look at these light poles. This is before they had light bulbs. You see how they look? They're so ornate and beautiful, and they have multiple light posts. So they have light posts back then in ancient times. This is a black and white photo from the 1800s. Okay, so I mean, you got all these things like this. And what does San Francisco look like today? This is San Francisco today, folks. This is the Age of Enlightenment, folks. People living on the streets and stuff like that. This was San Francisco back in the 1800s. They had these absolutely stunning buildings. This building right here, it no longer exists anymore. All the stuff was removed after the World Fairs, and they claim they built it really quickly and just removed it, which is not true. They built some, though. They built a couple things, and they detailed their building of those and then removed them, and then they could say, see, look, we built them. So they built a couple things and removed those couple things and showed how they were wood and plaster, but actually all the others were not wood and plaster, and they removed all of them. See what I mean? So they did it a certain way. I've covered this before on video as well. It has to do with John Root, and he happens to be related to a ton of people that are famous today. Let me show you that. Is it here? Yeah, here it is. So Walt Disney's related to him, and it's interesting because these World Fairs are very much like Walt Disney World, and they were trying to teach history as people came to these World Fairs, and then they removed. So they actually used historical architecture, didn't tell you what they were, told you a different history, and then removed them after they were done. This is what John Root did. He's related to a ton of people. Very famous people you know today. Look, some of the former pres. You got George here. You see that? Charles Darwin's related to this guy. You got Roosevelt. You got tons of people related to this guy. Walt Disney. J.P. Morgan Chase. Like all the famous people you can think of. Rand McNally makes all the maps. All these people are related to this one guy, and this guy doesn't even show them all. There's like tons. Even famous kings, King Henry, tons of famous royalty, famous people, all related to this John Root guy who did the World Fairs. So, anyway, I think you get kind of the idea. I kind of want some of you guys to think. Let me know in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.